Welcome to my views and news. In this video, we'll try to analyze the ongoing talks in South Africa. It seems that Ethiopian government has come under tremendous pressure for cessation of hostilities. Mainly, the pressure is being exerted by the US. And US is adopting a multi-pronged strategy to put pressure upon Ethiopian government for agreement on stopping of war. These talks which are being held in South Africa are different. We know that a few weeks ago, talks were held between Tigray regional government and Ethiopian federal government representatives in Djibouti. But after that session of talks, US did lots of lobbying and it has led to significant pressure upon Ethiopian federal government. US strategy is that US is offering financial incentives to Ethiopian federal government. It has withheld financial support to Ethiopian federal government. IMF, World Bank, the loans, grants are on hold. They're not issuing anything. Secondly, Ethiopian loan payment rescheduling is also under consideration. In the next 2 months, Ethiopia will have to pay around 600 to 700 million US dollars in loan payments. But Ethiopian government is facing economic issues because it is not in a position to pay back this loan. Foreign exchange reserves are depleting fast. So on the one hand, economic pressure is being exerted on Ethiopian government by US through IMF, through World Bank. On the other hand, successfully, US government has improved its relations with African Union. African Union was a staunch supporter of Ethiopian government's position on the ongoing conflict. But we saw that at last UN Security Council session, 3 African countries supported a joint statement calling for stopping of war. Kenya, Ghana, Gabon, they wanted a joint statement. Ethiopia opposed. Russia and China opposed as well. Russia, China vetoed. So African countries stood with the US in support of a joint statement calling for stopping of war. And behind the scenes, Antony Blinken, US Secretary of State, it is very active. Before the start of talks, he talked to William Ruto, Kenyan president, who is close to PM Abiy. A few days ago, he traveled to Ethiopia, and there he praised PM Abiy, and he said before that in an interview that PM Abiy of Ethiopia was essential for peace and stability in the Horn of Africa. Antony Blinken talked to South Africa's foreign minister as well before the start of talks. And then last night, Antony Blinken called Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, MBZ, UAE's ruler. Why did he call MBZ? Because UAE has been supporting Ethiopian federal government. UAE provided drones and other logistics to Ethiopian military last year. This year as well, some flights were seen from UAE to Ethiopia. And in case of failure of talks, in case of economic pressure, more economic pressure upon Ethiopian federal government, Ethiopia could turn to the Middle East for financial aid. Ethiopia could turn to the UAE. That is why US is involving UAE, because UAE could be a potential supporter for Ethiopian economy in case of US sanctions, in case of withholding of grants and loans by IMF and World Bank. That is why US is involving UAE as well, and Canada too. Anthony Blinken is in Canada. He arrived in Canada, I think, last night, which is a personal visit and an official visit as well, because Anthony Blinken has a warm relationship with Global Affairs Minister of Canada, Melanie Joy. And both have been seen together on Melanie Jolly, not Joy. Both have been seen together, and people say they're very close. So he is there, and Melanie will host him. Melanie will take him to Montreal too. And there, Antony Blinken reportedly held a meeting with Moussa Faki. Moussa Faki is African Union's chairperson who is in Canada. And Justin Trudeau 2 days ago talked to PM Abiy, and the main topic of the telephone conversation was Tigray conflict in Ethiopia. Canada has some investments as well. Canada is an investor in Ethiopia. And obviously Blinken will talk to Justin Trudeau about Russia-Ukraine conflict and Ethiopian conflict. So you see that from multiple sides, US is tightening the noose around the neck of Ethiopian federal government. US wants Ethiopian federal government to agree to a ceasefire. African countries are also now supporting US stance that there should be immediate stopping of war. That is why I think Ethiopian government has come under severe pressure. Ethiopian government is hoping for reinstatement of AGWA as well. At the start of this year, US removed Ethiopia from AGWA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, and after that we have seen that tens of thousands have lost their jobs. Some international companies are closing their factories in Ethiopia. So, and some US officials said a few days ago that AGWA could be restored if progress was made towards peaceful solution to Ethiopian conflict. So, US is using economic leverage to make Ethiopian government agree to stopping of war. But US has its limits too. If US puts too much pressure upon Ethiopian federal government, if US starts supporting TPLF openly, US could be out of the picture as well. Like we are seeing the EU. EU is not part of talks. Why? Because Joseph Borrell was very vocal in condemnation of Ethiopian and Eritrean governments in support of TPLF. That is why we saw demonstrations against Joseph Borrell in Brussels by Ethiopians, and EU representative Annette Weber is not in South Africa. Mainly US is leading the talks there. Moussa Faki is also not there, African Union. Yes, three mediators are there. Fomzele, who is a former deputy president of South Africa, Obasanjo there too, and Kenyatta. So I personally think that Ethiopian government has come under pressure because if it refuses to stop the war, it will alienate not only US but also African countries as well, which have been very supportive of Ethiopian federal government. By the way, if war stops now at this point of time, even then it wouldn't be a strategic loss for Ethiopian federal government, because in this third round of fighting, Ethiopian federal forces, Eritrean military, they have taken control of around 30 to 40%, around 30% of mainland Tigray. So Tigray has lost territories. Tigray has lost several key cities, some key roads too. Shire, Gondar Road, B30 highway, parts of A2 highway, southern Tigray. Yes, disarming of TDF and dismantling of TPLF are maximalist demands which cannot be achieved at this point of time. So, of course, Ethiopian government would be making these maximalist demands. But even if at this point of time a war stops, I don't think Ethiopian federal government would be a disadvantage. It is in control of around 30 to 40% of Tigray territories. So let's see what happens. I personally think that the way pressure is being exerted on Ethiopian federal government from all sides, Ethiopian government might agree to stopping of a war. Think for watching.